Welcome to the Chicken Crew Hatching Out Facts, a chicken fact podcast brought to you by the exceptional Pottsboro Area Library and Raise Up Radio. Stay tuned to the end of the episode for more information on Raise Up Radio's program and mission. This week, after Grace Bertrand and Janet McQuistion discuss the basics of chicken raising, we'll be exploring how to fit an egg into an opening that's just a bit too small for it normally.
Our expert for this week is Janet McQuiston, interviewed by Grace Bertrand. Janet raises chickens, and we'll get to meet them in a later episode. But for now, she'll be explaining the basics of chicken raising.
Janet is going to tell us all about the ins and outs of raising chickens. How does the chicken raising process work?
You can start with small chickens, get chicks from a local feed store. There's an advantage to that. If you raise them at home, hatch them yourself, get fertile eggs from someone, which I've had lots of people do that from me, then you run the risk of getting a lot of roosters. No one wants a lot of roosters. So you have two schools of thought. You can hatch them yourself, and hatching is a lot of fun, and it's very educational, and it's just kind of magical. I love doing it. And often you can get a teacher at one of the local schools to hatch them for you. And so you benefit from all of the babies that are hatched. When I do that, I often take twice as many as what I really want. If I want to add 12 to my flock, I have her hatch about 24, 25, because half are usually going to be roosters. I raise them long enough to know if it's going to be a hen that I want to keep or if it's a rooster that needs to find a new home. And I find someone who will either want them to butcher or they raise just roosters. Most of the times they will raise them out and butcher them. I have a woman in the area who's a single mom with 5 children. She will take every rooster that I can give her and to feed her family. But there are times when I don't want to mess with roosters. I will gladly go to a local feed store and I will buy, you can get them 2 different ways. You can get a straight run, which is going to have roosters, and pullets, which is a female, and you don't know what you're getting. Or you can pay usually around $1 more and get just the pullets, so you don't run the risk of having roosters. So that's how you get started.
Another question for you. Since we were on the topic of eggs, if you were going to feed eggs to your whole family, how would you determine how many chickens you would need?
Chickens are not going to lay every day, and it also depends upon the breed. I have some of the old traditional breeds like a Barred Rock or a Buff Orpington. They lay well and they lay for a long time. Even a Leghorn, they will lay well and they will lay for several years. But I also mix in Red Star, Blue Star, Cinnamon Queens, things like that, because they lay a lot in a short amount of time. A chicken probably lays every 2 to 3 days. So depending on how fast you eat eggs, you can do that math that way. Something to consider. Chickens begin laying when they're 6 to 7 to 8 months old. That's full grown for them. That's when they start laying. Every year, except their first year, they molt, which means they lose their feathers, most all of their feathers, slowly. And they start around September, October, November, depending on the climate, how quickly it gets cold in your area. They will lose most of their feathers and then they stop laying. During that time, they put all their energy into growing those feathers back. You change their feed a little bit, give them black oil sunflower seeds, and just kind of help their body grow those feathers back quickly because they want new, fresh feathers to make it through the winter. And they don't lay for a couple of months. And then they start laying again here in Texas around February or March. Some people will leave a light on in their coop to give them artificial light and can get them to lay a little bit longer. I don't. I feel like that's a little harder on their bodies. My girls are kind of spoiled. Well, you need to factor that in as well. When it gets super, super hot, like it does here in Texas, a lot of them will quit laying. I always mix in a couple of breeds that will lay when it's really hot. When the others stop, they're still going. I have what they call a naked neck turkin. You'll see them in a minute, and literally their neck is naked looking. And so many people will say, oh, what happened to that chicken? Well, nothing. It just, God made it without feathers on its neck. And when it's really, really hot, that chicken stays cool enough, it will continue to lay. But usually around September, October, I have a lot that quit. And for about 2 or 3 months of the year, I buy store-bought eggs.
I'm sure another reason they stop laying is because they need their feathers to keep the eggs warm.
Absolutely. Well, they lay their eggs and then they walk away. If you'll walk in the coop right now, I bet you'll see some that are sitting in their nesting boxes. Looks like she is about to lay. right there. And there's one that she likes to lay underneath all the boxes in the corner. This one is checking out, this is a naked neck turkin. She is checking out, kind of deciding where she wants to lay. I've read that you need 2 boxes for every dozen hens, so if you have a dozen hens, 2 boxes are fine. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 boxes for them to lay in, and I have up to 40 hens at times. They'll pick 2, and they all lay in 2. You really don't need that many boxes.
So can you
On cue.
So can you tell me a little bit more about roosters?
You do not need a rooster for your hens to lay eggs. I get asked that question a lot. You do not. They're going to lay eggs whether you have a rooster or not. I just like having a rooster. They're just fun to watch, and they're just amazing protectors. And if I ever want to hatch my own eggs, then I definitely need a rooster so that we've got fertile eggs.
For today's egg experiment, you'll just need a hard-boiled egg, a glass bottle, or a jar with a neck a little smaller than the egg, and some matches. For our younger audience, you'll need an adult to help with using the matches. Place the boiled egg on top of the bottle or jar to make sure there's no way it could slip through normally. Take the egg off the bottle or jar, but be ready to put it back on top quickly after the next step. Light a match and drop it in the jar. Quickly place the egg back on top of the jar. As the match goes out, the egg should start to drop down into the jar. It may take a minute, so don't worry if it doesn't drop right away. If the egg doesn't behave properly the first time, try again with another match. Once you've gotten the egg into the jar, you'll probably wonder why a match made the egg slide down like this. And that all has to do with air pressure. The lit match heats up the air inside the jar, causing the air to expand, increasing the air pressure inside the jar. Some of it escapes past the egg on top. Once the match goes out, the air inside the jar starts to cool again, and the air pressure in the jar drops again. When the air pressure outside the jar is higher than inside the jar, the outside air pushes its way into the jar, taking the egg with it.
Thanks for joining us this week. Don't lose your head, because we'll be right back next week with more chicken facts, egg trials, and the answer to the question, how are eggshells formed? If you still can't wait that long for more chicken info, go to the Pottsboro Library's website at pottsborolibrary.com, where we have a map of chicken supply assets and owners in the area. That's POTTSBORO library.com.
For updates on the Chicken Crew, Hatching Out Facts, and the Pottsboro Library's other programs, projects, and various goings-on, check us out at Pottsboro Library on Facebook and at Pottsboro Lib on Twitter. To keep up to date on Raise Up Radio's project as a whole, follow at RIN Libraries on Twitter.
The Chicken Crew Hatching Out Facts is part of Raise Up Radio, a program designed to address educational inequities in rural areas and create a new community of practice for library professionals. This program is part of a research study conducted by the University of North Texas and University of Alabama, made possible in part by the Institute of Museum and Library Services through IMLS grant number RE 250133 OLS 21. For more information on this project and what other libraries are making through it, go to rurl.ci.unt.edu. That's rurl.ci.unt.edu.